Hey there, everyone. Hello, all you fine people. Welcome. It is Thursday, December the 16th, and I thought it was time to stop by and share a couple reflections with you this week as we get ready to step into the celebration for many people of Christmas. So I named this live today, Stepping Over Truth. And just because, usually I come on here and I share things that are showing up in my life and things that I'm working on with, clients and themes that are showing up in different ways. And so if you're new here, my name is Adrienne Lopez and I am an integrative awareness coach. And that is just a really fancy way of saying that I help creatives and intuitives and light workers and coaches on their path to integrating all aspects of their consciousness so they can access more fully their potential, their confidence, and the unique gifts and talents that they have to share with the world. I know that there's many ways that we can get in our own way because I've experienced it. I'm a human in my evolution and progression. I have been on a healing journey for many years, and it's a work in progress, right? We're always continually growing and learning and developing and getting new insights and more clarity about what we value, how to live more fully, and be the person that we came here to be. So, as I mentioned, if you're new here and you are getting some value or you hear something interesting today that catches your interest and makes you think, just please leave a hashtag live if you're here live, or a hashtag replay if you're here on the replay, so that I know that you were here. It's really important to me as I build this platform. Please do me a favor and give me a like, a follow, or subscribe, depending on what platform you're listening to this. You can also leave me a comment or an emoji, and that just lets me know who's here. If you received some value from what you heard today, I'd love to hear. It helps me fine-tune my messages in the future and develop more content that you value and makes a difference for you in your life. So with this being said, today I wanted to talk to you about stepping over our truth and why this happens. So this can happen often. It has been my experience that it happens when there's pain underneath that truth. I have to plug in my computer, excuse me. When there's pain underneath it, and that's why our brain and our nervous system sometimes encourages us to just step right over it, because if we were actually going to look at our truth, we might have to look at the pain underneath it. It is this pain that can keep the truth hidden from us because it's stored in our unconscious mind. But the more that you do this work, the more that you realize that there is a way to heal this disassociation and fragmentation from self, so we don't have to be thrown out of ourselves when we come upon something that triggers us, or something that's painful, unhealed emotion that has not been addressed. So this is talked about in many different schools of thought, in many different languages, in many different religions, in many philosophies, and in many vocabularies. So in the mystic tradition, this is the resurrection of what they refer to as the inner child and the intuition of the higher self. Though through science, cognitive science, the study of stress management, self-regulation, that has really been blowing up all over the place. This is the integration of the left and the right brain, or balancing the three brains, the mind, or the brain, the heart, and our gut, right? And they've discovered that we actually have three main brains in our body. And so part of the concept behind the integration of awareness is bringing all of these levels together so they can work in cooperation on the same team instead of working against each other because they speak different languages. So no matter what vocabulary you use or what school of thought you favor, the simple truth is that emotional pain, when we experience emotional pain, it doesn't just go away because we ignore it or we don't deal with it. It simply becomes stored in our bodies and our energy field, and it usually shows up in different illnesses and chronic conditions or other symptoms that show up in our life. And while the conscious mind, or our ego mind, as they say, is only actually aware of 10% of what's going on in this whole miraculous layered mechanism that we inhabit, our body, our nervous system, our energy body, and our consciousness, that we have this survival brain that was created to protect us from pain. But it's not real wise, this part of our brain. It's just kind of like a watchdog. It's always on guard. And so it's using one part of our brain, but not the entirety of our brain. So our ego, or our conscious mind, was created in a way to protect us from things that appear painful, even if this means that it compromises our true health, our authenticity, or our power, our ability to be sovereign and to be at choice, in our lives, without making decisions out of past events or past wounding. So some of you may have heard about adverse childhood effects. Dr. Nadine Burke did a study, and she has a famous TED Talk on it in San Francisco. She was studying the children and their level of chronic disease and conditions. And with Kaiser Permanente, they discovered that traumatic events are affecting not only children's health, but adult health and well-being. And so she found that often the number of adverse childhood effects, or events, I should say, is actually directly related to the level of health an adult will experience throughout their life. And one thing she found out, which was very interesting, as a middle school teacher and a mindfulness educator, I have had the opportunity to study, childhood development, cognitive processing in regards to how we learn, and all different topics relating to how our emotions affect our cognitive ability to process information. So in this study, she found out that about 60% of adults in the study reported at least one adverse childhood event or experience, and that almost 25% of American adults reported 3 or more. And this is an event, there's a list that you can Google, adverse childhood events, but it has anything to do that's that's destabilizing to a sense of self, a developing nervous system, a sense of safety, a sense of security, a sense of emotional safety. And so it could be anything to like a car accident, or domestic violence in the home, or drug or alcohol abuse, or food insecurity, and so on. You can imagine, right, what would cause a disruption in the flourishing of a child. And so for many, the word trauma doesn't actually translate for a lot of people, so they don't think that it pertains to them, until you begin to realize that many of the things that may have seemed normal to us as children, like just happens to everyone, was actually destabilizing for our developing nervous system. And so it like got a scratch in the record, or we got like a disassociation, or like a checkout, like whenever we went unconscious, because our conscious mind was trying to protect us from something that appeared hurtful or painful. And it could be something that, to an adult may seem somewhat benign, like, a car accident, or maybe an argument between parents. But these events can have long-lasting effects on our health, and our emotional health. And our emotional health, of course, affects our physical health. Because the truth is this nervous system that we have is highly attuned. And, there are studies that have been done about babies, right, in utero, who are taking in the energy of the environment around them before they're even born. So the human nervous system is extremely sensitive, and more extensive than perhaps most of Western medicine has actually had the ability to measure or recognize, and that the events around us are affecting our development more than perhaps anyone ever imagined. But because these events can affect our ability to really understand and acknowledge the depth of just how much these experiences that we've had are still shaping our life today and our choices today, and our pull to avoid our truth because of the layer of unprocessed emotion that might still be there. And so this makes it difficult for many humans to speak their truth to someone else, let alone themselves, not because they don't want to, but because, as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, that the truth is often hidden under a layer of pain, so it's actually even hidden from ourselves. And this is what the ego's job is. It creates these walls to protect us. But what it doesn't realize, because it just doesn't think this way, is that when it builds these walls, it also ends up like locking the pain behind these walls. And it's an unintended consequence of wanting to lock out the pain, but it actually ends up locking it behind the walls. So then anytime we attempt to step outside of those walls, or what we know to be ourself, our personality, our ego, what we've identified as, oh, that's just who I am, is actually maybe more of a stress response than an actual personality trait. And this stored pain can be triggered unconsciously. In fact, it's happening most of the time. Most people that I've worked with as a hypnotherapist, as a mindfulness and meditation teacher, as a life coach, the thing that's stopping them in their life isn't actually the thing that's stopping them. It's the emotional vibration that of fear, a lot of times that's pushing that thing away because the ego's afraid of it, because in the past it caused them pain. So this is just like a self-fulfilling prophecy for the ego, because the ego goes, aha, see, that hurt. The world is an awful, dangerous place, and I can't trust people, and it's just too much. So this is where we can come to a fork in the road, and we can decide to begin to walk a new way, to behave in a new way, to relate to ourself in a more holistic or integrated way. And that's really what I'm doing in my work and sharing with people. Because if we don't, we find other ways to cover over addictive patterns of behavior and fear personalities, to cover over these ever-present, like this unprocessed discomfort that's at many people's core. For example, I have experienced this, and I've also talked to people that their personality is just somebody that's afraid all the time, or their personality is just someone that they feel guilty all the time, or shameful. You can fill in the blank, right? You probably may recognize this in yourself or know somebody that's always this way. And they've been that way for so long that they actually believe that the emotion behind the wall is actually who they are, instead of a rejection of an unwanted emotion or an unwillingness to be with their own discomfort. And this isn't to throw anybody under the bus or to tell people, that they're living a lie or anything like that. It's just part of the ego's construct. But the more you learn about the ego and how it's designed and the nervous system, the more you begin to see that the ego's fear of emotion makes it resistant to stepping outside and growing and experiencing life in a different way. Not because it's not possible at all, it's just that it's afraid that its worst fear is true. Like, what if I am guilty? What if I am shameful? What if I am a liar? What if I am a terrible person? And so the ego doesn't have a lot of freedom because it's constantly on guard. And so if you or I choose to walk down a different path than letting our ego constantly run the show of our life, this 10% of our entire consciousness, then it's going to have to learn to shift its identity, and then its relationship to the world is going to change. This world, this construct of the world that was originally constructed by it, that was intended to keep it safe, so that was a good intention, but that will have to change. And that's very terrifying for the ego, because it's been trying to protect you from these big bad wolves, your whole life. And this can be very disconcerting for the ego, but ultimately freeing. And we can begin to find safe ways to process and dismantle these ego walls in a way that the ego becomes a willing participant, begins to be an active participant, begins to cooperate and see how it can actually contribute to your well-being and your health. And then the walls start to come down, and with them, of course, this pain, unprocessed pain or an emotion that has been there, gets cleared out. It's like clearing out your house, and the energy attached to it gets released and removed, and then It gets released from your nervous system and your body and your mind and your energy body. It's finally observed, witnessed, and experienced, and then it can be let go. And this shift is a journey. It doesn't happen overnight. And part of it, deciding to go down this other road, this other pathway of being with yourself, has been my path and my purpose and my passion to serve as a loving guide to those that are ready to come home to their most authentic sense of self. And I call this the sacred self, because it is able to touch its own truth without a sense of pain and loss and fear. And this is the wholeness of who you really are. And this is my most heartfelt wish for all people, to be able to know that this is the most important journey when you move from the ego to so the ego doesn't have to think that it has to do it all alone, and you move from the head to the heart, and then you begin to expand your lens of what's possible and what it means to be free and to be truly at choice, instead of living in painful programs of the survival brain that leave a lot of people feeling lost, like a victim, like they have to give up their dreams, or they're like a person that just will never have their dreams come true. And step out of that self-fulfilling prophecy and begin to see it for what it is, a survival mechanism that was put there on purpose to protect you, until it's actually stopping you from moving forward. So the good news is that the ego, once it begins to look behind the curtain, right, of the personality construct, it begins to see that there's many, like this game can only go on for so long. Of course, many people might not ever even look behind the curtain, and that's fine too, right? We're all in our own learning curves. I'm here for those people that are ready to pull back the curtain and to begin to realize that they've been held prisoner to a certain degree by a tyrant called the survival brain. And when you are ready, when anybody is ready, you will find the people to help you, to support you, to guide you, those that have made the journey. And you will begin to trust life more and more than you already do. And you'll begin to trust other parts of your consciousness, more wise parts like your intuition, that understands that this limiting perception the ego has created for you only allows you to have this or that. Like either I can be safe or I can have my truth. But this is a false dichotomy. It doesn't actually exist. So once the ego begins to realize this, that a lot of its constructs of how it related to life and how it allowed you to be in a personality is based on half-truth. And so it has kept all of us, many of us, running in circles like a mouse in a maze, one of our own making. Of course, we had lots of help. It's not like we did it all by ourselves. It's a collective construct of the self that we've been living in. And it's time, hey, how's it going? It's time to redesign, to reimagine our relationship to this self. One that allows us to be more fully who we are, more free, to step into our truth, to be free from inner struggle or pain and limitations, and integrate the world and the life that you live in a more complete way, that allows more of a complete expression of who you are. And that's the most precious gift that I can think of that I would give anyone. So I just wanted to close with an announcement and an invitation for you for 2022. This is an invitation to a one-of-a-kind year-long mentorship called Rituals of the Sacred Self. And it is an accumulation of all the work that I've done and I've shared with people and clients. And it is designed as an intentional container for those ready to be held in grace and reverence and love, that their truth, the truth of who they are, deserves, as you began this journey back to the wholeness of who you really are at the core. Before, right, we've all picked up all sorts of things along the way, and a lot of them, right, probably don't even pertain to us when we really begin to bring our awareness to them and observe them and see and ask, are they serving us? So I went ahead and put the link in this live so you can check it out. You can go to the link and you can find out more about the construct of the program. It's going to be online. It's going to be 12 months, 4 days a month. We're going to be meeting to look at how we can cultivate that relationship with that sacred. And I use the sacred because it is the space of your life, and life is sacred. It's holy. And to be whole means to be healthy on all levels of being, not just our physical being, but our mental and emotional health, which affects our physical health. And so I invite you to check it out. I have really decided to price it at a extremely discounted rate because I want to make it available to as many people as possible, because I think you deserve it. So it's that discounted price is available till December the 31st. And if you want to find out more or you have any questions, you can reach out to me here. I only have 20 spots available. So please join ASAP if it sounds like something you're interested in, because we are starting Thursday, January the 6th. So it will be live on Zoom on a computer near you. If you can't attend the live, there will be replays and much more. So let me know if you have any questions or concerns that I can answer for you. Thank you for stopping by and taking a listen. Again, if you heard something of value here today, something that lit you up or got you thinking about your relationship with yourself and your truth and your health and well-being, leave an emoji, leave a comment, let me know you were here. Like I said, I'm really in the process of building this platform, so I appreciate your support and acknowledgement. It really helps me fine-tune my message and provide more valuable content in the future. So until next time, you guys, please remember what a valuable treasure you are. It's always a pleasure to be here with you. Thanks for stopping by, and I'll see you real soon. Bye for now.